Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we have another exciting conversation. So I just want you all to get ready to gain something from this conversation. I know I'm looking forward to this conversation. And if you're here with us, I just want to ask you, please share this conversation with your network. My name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Black Male Impact. And today we have as guest Dr. Robert L. Murphy. And before we get into the conversation today, I'm going to briefly share with you um, about Dr. Murphy, but I'm going to allow him to talk more about himself before we get into the conversation today. What we're going to be the theme for our conversation, being that we're still in the month of February, which is Black History Month. The theme is honoring legacy, elevating identity, unlocking generational dreams. So, for those who are here, again, I just want to say thanks to all those who are here. And again, please share this conversation with your network. So, Dr. Murphy, he has been in education for 45 years, and that's commendable. And that shows you how dedicated he is, not just to teach, but to help mold the minds of the future. He's also the founder of the Masters Preparatory Academy. And I think that school focuses on males of color, correct? And he's a past principal of Columbus City Schools. So he has been in education for a while, and really excited about this conversation, especially when it comes on to honoring legacy, elevating identity, because that's his commitment to molding the minds of the students and also unlocking generational dreams, because it's up to us to help the young people, especially who are entrusted to us to realize their potential. So, Dr. Murphy, welcome, and please go ahead and share more about yourself before we get into this conversation today.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Dr. Cross says, this is year 45 for me as an educator. Obviously, I started out as a teacher. Um, I was an art teacher, football and track coach. Went into administration as a building principal, administrator. I currently still work in Columbus City Schools, even though I retired in 2012, uh, and I am the district ombudsman. So I deal with all of the complaints that come to the superintendent's desk. But I'm working to open the Master's Preparatory Academy. It is not open at this time, but it is a boarding school designed for African American boys.
Man, and that's commendable. Even before I get into the questions that I have for you, if you don't mind, what really inspired you to want to start the boarding school for African American boys?
Well, I looked at the young men that I've dealt with throughout my career who were not successful. And the majority of them were not successful, not because they lacked the cognitive ability. It was all the social, emotional, mental health, neighborhood, home stuff, all the non academic things that got in the way. And so when I started my doctoral work, they said to select a topic that you're passionate about, that'll help carry you through that arduous process of getting a doctorate. And so that was a no brainer for me because I've always been passionate about our boys. And so my dissertation was the impact of a single gender school on the social, emotional, and academic progress of low income African American males. So, as I continue to work and continue to work with young men and see the the low performance of so many of them, and I try to put them in a position and connect them with people that can help them understand who they are, but not
Right.
only that, who they are, but who they can become.
Man, that is so important. Not just who they are, but who they can become. But you said something that is really important and that educators sometimes overlooked because, sometimes they look at black males on the performance based on a cognitive perspective, thinking that innately they may not have the ability
Right.
to do the academics that is required of them, but they overlook the environment in which they are coming from or the environment in which they are, because sometimes those boys may be, hearing all the things that they can't be.
Certainly.
And if you keep hearing what you cannot be, at some point you may start to believe it. And if you take on that belief of you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you are whatever they may have heard, it's going to affect their perspective of self and even their ability to perform academically. And then they are now judged based on their performance. And with all the other false narratives that we hear out there, what have been socially engineered, then it also start affecting those who are in caring for them, how they look at them, because we know that there is a prison to you know what's that,
The school to prison pipeline.
school to prison pipeline. Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
You know
uh,
what? Not to cut you off, but there are a lot of teachers that our young men interface with every day that have very low expectations of our young men. Because of all of the negative narratives that have been put out there about them. And I'm a perfect product of that. All of my teachers throughout my high school, school career through even through high school, had very low expectations for me.
wow.
And for a long time, I performed at those low expectations, until I ran into somebody that said, "Oh no, you're much better than this. You can be much better than this." And then I started to progress. But um, there are so many negative things out there that adversely impact our young men that need to be changed. Most definitely.
Man, and you said something really important, the expectation. I know we're ongoing and we haven't even touched on the questions yet, but as you mentioned about expectations, I think that's one thing as educators we must be cognizant of,
Absolutely.
because if we don't have high expectations, they're going to perform based on what we believe. And if
Absolutely.
we hold
Absolutely.
the bar high, not only in telling them but also model what we're trying for them
Absolutely.
to do, I think
Absolutely.
they will just as yourself, because you performed, and a lot of us performed based on what the people around us expect. And if
Mhm.
it is low expectation, we're going to perform according to low expectation. And
Absolutely.
once the bar is raised, we ourselves can attest to, raising ourselves up to that expectation, which means innately the ability to do well academically was always there.
Always. I run a pretty intensive residential program. It's a leadership institute. And when the young men come in, we let them know at the very beginning, these are our standards. We expect you to rise at these standards. We're not going to lower them.
Correct.
All we expect from them, the main thing we expect from them is to be committed to making themselves better. Don't be committed to us, be committed to yourself to make yourself better and rise to these expectations because they will set you on the path to moving forward.
Man, that is so true and so important. And someone like you would be a good advocate, because not only that you have raised yourself to the highest academic achievement, because having a doctoral degree is the highest you can go, but you yourself. can attest to the importance of creating that space for Black boys or all students, as a matter of fact,
All students.
because not only Black boys perform lower than they're capable of, but sometimes you realize it seems to be affecting us mostly because we are dealing with so many different things, outside of just not believing in us. The system set up already, for people to look at us at a certain way.
Absolutely.
Um, yes, sir. So I have so many questions that I want to ask, so I'm going to make sure I get into the questions
Okay.
before we, here talking for the duration and haven't yet. But what you're saying about expectations, we can go on that subject, especially when it comes to Black boys.
Hmm.
So and as I said earlier, we are here to honor the legacy. So my first question is on honoring the legacy. Being that it's Black History Month, which reminds us that we stand on the shoulders of giants. So my question to you is: who are the Black men whose sacrifices and ambition directly impacted your journey, and how you honor them in your work today?
I think the ones who have impacted me most are the men in my family. My mom and dad got divorced when I was very young, so my father was never in my life, but my uncles held me to a very high standard. Matter of fact, I enlisted into the United States Marine Corps because of two of my uncles who were Marines before before I enlisted, and moving that decision to enlist in the Marine Corps is what changed my life. Because like I said earlier, all of the time while I was in school, I was held to very low expectations. And
Correct.
when I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, that flipped very quickly, and I was held to some very high standards that I still carry today. And I try to impart those and also exhibit those on a daily basis to everybody that I come in contact with. I learned to be a man of integrity. That my actions line up with what comes out of my mouth. There's so many of our young people who talk a very good game, but their actions don't exhibit that. And I tell people all the time, especially young men, I hear what you say, but I watch what you do. And if there's no congruence between those things, then we're going to have some issues.
Correct, 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 and that is so important that we match our words with what we say, because one thing we know for sure is that there are people out there who are watching us,
Always.
and being that people are watching us, we have to be mindful of the things that we do. So that's a very valid point that you made right there. But you said something that is really important, and where when you went into the Navy, because you have seen your uncles in it. So I want to ask you: do you think our males today will benefit greatly from the path that you take, or everybody have to choose their own path?
Absolutely, everybody has to choose their own path. Um, I think that a lot of them would, and the school that we're building is built kind of upon a military model. It's not a military school, but a lot of the things that I've learned through that process are incorporated in the school. There's a saying that says, "Once a Marine, always a Marine," and
Correct.
that's so very true. I mean, those standards get instilled in you, and you never can get away from them because they become a part of you. And
Correct.
so, being able to show young men that they can achieve, whether it's in the military or not, but still using those same principles of perseverance, of integrity, of being a man of your word, and exhibiting those things and trying to be the best that you can be. And what you said earlier is so very true. I tell young men, I got a $10,000 raise and a new job based on a 5 minute conversation that I had with a total stranger. So
Wow.
you're right. There's always somebody's watching. You never know who you're watching, or ever know who's watching you, or who you're talking to.
Correct, correct. And I
You
can
always have to be at your best.
Oh yeah, and one of my mentors, and I always, Dr. Kimbrough, is always say you're representing yourself everywhere you go. So you always
Agreed.
want to show up as your best. It doesn't matter what's happening around you. You want to be at your best because
Yes.
someone is watching. And I just want to acknowledge our brother Michael. And I think we are back. I just want to say sorry for that technical difficulty. That is something that I could not have controlled. Uh, Dr. Murphy, I just want to say thank you
Yes,
for staying on because the software just start up reloading, and then it kicks me off the computer. But for those who are here and still here, I just want to say thanks for staying here with us. And I know we were talking about, um, the impact of the programs in regards to schools and stuff like that. So we're just going to get back to that, and then we're going to just go straight back into the conversation. I almost want to start from the beginning, but actually, I could actually, let's continue.
okay,
Let's continue.
that's fine.
Uh, yes. So I know we were talking about those who have been the role model for you, and how you got into the military and how beneficial it could be for others. But you also said that everyone, you know, have their own journey to take. But with the structure that comes with the military, a lot of young people could benefit. And also, although your school is not like a military school, but you still kind of operate on the same principle, because I think structure is very beneficial to our young people. So I'm
Absolutely.
going to go into. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to go into the next question, the cost of opportunity. Many of the opportunities we now have um, was the greatest price. No, many of the opportunities we now have were paid for with struggle. What do you believe was the greatest price previous generations paid to expand educational access for us?
I think a lot of our ancestors paid with their lives first and
Wow.
foremost. It was illegal for us to learn to read. You know, and so there were a lot of people who sacrificed and taught others to read at the peril of their own lives. And so our ancestors had sacrificed tremendously for us to be where we are. We are the hopes and dreams of those who came before us. They dreamed of having a better life and the opportunities that they didn't have, they wanted for us. My mom was a single mom, uh, didn't really go to college or anything, but it was a given from day one that I was going to go to college. And she had very high expectations to make sure that I accomplished that. And there are so many folks who were not able to avail themselves of the opportunities that we now have, but made sure that we had opportunities to reach those goals and dreams.
And as you said, some of the people before us, they paid with their lives
Hmm.
to make it possible for us. And even for that reason alone, we should really honor the opportunity, take full advantage of it,
Absolutely.
because there, especially when it comes on to February. I remember the gentleman that was sitting outside the classroom. He was much older than the rest of the students. He could have been maybe their father,
Right.
and but he wanted to learn so much, and he had the potential, but it didn't want him to be in the classroom. And he said, what, I'm going to learn by any means necessary.
Absolutely.
And when you see those kind of images, you should, like, it should give you this like fire in yourself to say, what, man, those people who didn't get the opportunities that I have today,
Right.
I'm going to make the most of it. And as you said, your mom held you to a certain expectation, even though she didn't have the opportunity. She wanted you to have that opportunity. And that's one of the responsibility we have today.
Absolutely.
Need to encourage the importance of education and all the things that's going on, with the change of time with technology and different opportunities that are online. But if you really look at it, some of the successful people, despite access and whatever they can do, they're still going are sending their kids to get education. That means education still worth the effort, worth the time, worth pursuing. Because if we are not educated, we not going to be in those positions to make the decisions that will impact generations to come.
And the education that you get, no one can ever take away from you.
Correct, correct, correct. And that is so important. So important, which leads me to my next question. It's on education and liberation. Historically, education for Black people was considered dangerous, as you mentioned, as we have seen, because it empowers us. What does education mean to you beyond degrees and credentials, which we know because you are creating a school. But the listeners may want to hear what does education mean to you beyond degrees and credentials.
Well, for me, the biggest thing, and especially working with young people, is helping them again, first of all, understand who they are, where they come from, what is their history. Our history didn't begin with slavery, obviously, you know, um, but more important than who you are, what it is that you can become. And for me, that's what education is more important with, other than degrees or learning math or English, is learning who you are and your capabilities and what you can become, and then you go out and you strive to become those things. And not only do you become those things and accomplish those things, but then you become an example for others, because like you said, somebody's always watching.
Correct.
And if you can, just by your own life, be an example for younger people to strive to be. The old saying that they can't be what they can't see.
Correct.
And so I want to make sure that I am an example. I didn't want to be a role model, didn't strive to be a role model, but it didn't take me long to realize that I was one, and there was a
Correct.
responsibility that came along with that. And I used to tell my students all the time, when you're out there in the world, represent us well, because everybody's going to judge us by what they see you do. And I gave
Correct.
myself as an example. I said, if I get pulled over for drunk driving, it's not going to be Robert Murphy got pulled over, but the principal of X school or
Yeah.
the head of X school. So I've got to make sure that I always hold myself to a high standard so that others may follow.
Oh yeah, man. That is so important. But I also want to just one of the comments, and I may not get to all of the comments, but I need to say this. We love a patient man. So that's from Berry Berry. Kudos to Dr. Murphy's patience. Because you displayed patience, which is also important for us as people on a whole, but also very, very important for us as Black men to exercise patience. So even though we have technical difficulty, you were still teaching lessons with the technicality that we just experienced, because patience, as we all know, it's a virtue, and life is going to happen. And when
Absolutely.
life happens, we can't just throw in the towel and give up because something happened that we didn't have no control over. But you have just provided a valuable lesson and reminder to all of us to exercise patience. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that one of the listeners pointed out, because that was really a good reminder, and I didn't even catch it to even mention it. So that that's
Well,
it's something.
One thing I tell young people all the time, I tell them, I say, you'll hear me say a lot of things, but one thing that I always tell young folks, if you remember nothing else that ever comes out of my mouth, remember this. There's only three things in this life that you can control. That's what you think, what you say, and what you do. You can
That's right.
control those three things. So, you can develop patience, you can develop perseverance. To say you made me mad is now not valid because you can't make me think something I don't want to think.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
you've got to be in control of those three things.
Man, and that again, a very, very, very important lesson and reminder. Those three things, and we have to realize that, man, because especially today, where people be saying things and doing things to really get to us, and we
Absolutely.
cannot afford to let people get under our skins like that. Not today.
Right.
We should
They
be
can,
more aware.
yeah, they want to label us to the angry black man. You know?
Correct, correct. And then
Yep.
we just keep falling to it. They
Yep.
say something that they think, oh yeah, this stuff always work. So I'm going to keep saying it.
Right.
Man, but you're right. You can't let me think the way that I'm thinking just because of what you say. I'm not going to give you that power.
Right.
So that is great. So as we talk about ambition of our ancestors, we standing on the shoulders of giants. Those before us dream not just for themselves, but for generations they would never meet. And
Right.
that's something that we all need to think about. And especially today, we cannot be selfish. We have to know that whatever we do should benefit the next generation. So, how do you see their ambition living through you today?
Well, the school that I am building, um, it is my goal that it is functioning and turning out outstanding young men long after I'm gone.
Correct.
So I'm building a school for young men that I may never meet. You
Wow.
know, um, and so because again, like you said, our ancestors did the same things for us.
Correct.
There's a proverb that says that you know, a great man plants a tree that he may never enjoy the shade from.
Correct.
So, it's the same thing here. I've got to make sure that I leave a legacy and leave something for those who follow after me because, again, that should be the purpose of all of us. And
Correct.
it's our purpose in life to be beneficial to other people and not be selfish and garner and hoard all of the things that we accomplish or that we acquire.
Oh, that is true. It's so funny as you said that. You see, when you don't have certain things, right? And you say, man, we need all these things, and we get all these things, and then we realize we don't really need all the things. So we have to focus on what we can build so others can benefit, because there's only certain amount of things that we can actually utilize
Yep.
in our lifetime, but having so much of it that we can't benefit, so we're just hoarding it, when we could have done something to benefit even immediate
Yep.
generation, but more so generations to come. I know you mentioned high expectations, of yourself and those who held it of you. So high expectations as love in many Black household. Um, High expectations as love in many Black households. High expectations were not pressure; they were protection. How have high expectations shape your discipline, standards, and leadership?
I tell everybody I am the man that I am because I was terrified of Lynette Murphy.
Oh,
She
wow.
had a very high standard, and accepted nothing less than my best. And that is something that again is instilled in me, and that I constantly try to instill in young people. That you have to give your best. You know, your best may not be good enough in a certain situation, but you can be okay and be satisfied understanding that you did the best that you could, in every situation. But at the same time, like you said, that's not punishment, that's protection. You know,
Correct. Correct.
we look at the Ten Commandments, and and I tell students all the time, the rules of school are meant for your protection, not for your punishment.
Correct.
And we have to understand that in order to achieve and to excel, we've got to be disciplined, and it takes a lot of self-discipline to have high expectations for yourself and for those around you.
Correct, correct, correct. That is true. And as you said, which as I have here, that it's not to punish, but it's to protect. And when
Absolutely.
we are in an environment that have high expectations of us, I think we tend to dig deeper within ourselves. But as you mentioned, that becomes a part of who you are,
Right.
because it's part of the foundation. And even if, as they said, even if we stray from what we have been taught, what we have been conditioned by the foundation, even if we stray, it's easier to come back to that
Absolutely.
foundation. So, we see this all the time. We see people who say grew up in the church and, have those foundation, and they, yes, they may step out, but one day they may be doing something and come back to their foundation. And the same thing with almost anything, whatever the foundation is, you can easily snap back into it, especially when it helps you to become the person that you are today. So I think that is really important, and it's something that we all need to think about. Make sure we are helping to create a foundation that, even if our young people should stray because of distractions, it is so evident what we are trying for them to realize, that they come right back to it if they do stray away from that foundation. But we have to make it evident.
Yes.
Yes, we are in charge of our home first, of course, and then our community, and then the country, at large. But we have to make it so evident that even if they stray, they come right back to it. My next question, which is on identity ambition. Our young black men today are navigating complex narratives about who they are. And this is something that you know well, because that's where your passion lies, because you have seen our young people every day. So, what does it mean to intentionally affirm black male identity in today's climate?
Oh, well, I think before we went live, we were having the conversation that I tell young men that I look at them as seeds, and they need to understand that a seed possesses everything within itself to be what God designed it to be. All it
Correct.
needs to be is planted in good soil and have sufficient sunlight and water. uh,
Correct.
and then they can blossom and become what they were destined to be. And I look at them, and when I tell them I look at them as a seed, I also tell them that I don't just see them as a seed, but I see them as a full tree with the fruit on it. So again, who you are, but who you can become. You know, and there, like you said, there are so many false and negative narratives out there portrayed for our young men. They
Correct.
don't understand that, again, those things are designed for their destruction. And so they have to understand the truth. They've got to learn who their true selves are, and then we can help them become what they can be.
Man, and that is so, so, so important. Help them to see beyond the narrative that's been created. But I know you said, especially in the earlier part of the conversation, that it's important that we model what we are telling them, because one thing it is to tell them what they can and what we believe they can be and what they can do. But our most powerful message is going to come from what they see us do. So if I tell you that you can, if I tell you that you can go the extra mile, it's important that they see us going the extra mile.
Absolutely.
It's important, yes, it's important, that they see us displaying discipline, displaying commitment, because again, that's going to be the most powerful message that we will send to our young people.
Absolutely.
Yes, and in regards to, I know you talk about the narrative that they see and what they're exposed to every single day. In regards to rewriting the narrative, for generations, Black men have been misrepresented in systems and media. How do you actively rewrite the narrative while honoring the truth of our history?
Well, it's a daily walk, first and foremost. You have to, consistency is the most important way to help young people change how they think and how they process and how they do. You know, they've got to hear a consistent message. And so, again, if, like you said, if you model what you expect of those young people, they begin to see those things in you, and they begin to change the way they process and the way that they think. And so we always have to measure our words and our actions so that they are honorable and they're right and they're true. And the more that we do that, the more that those young people can begin to change the narrative for themselves. Because again, you can't be what you don't see. So
Yeah.
if they see a man like you or I who not only speaks things, but demonstrates and lives out those things, then they begin to see that they can become those things as well.
Oh yeah, it is so important, and that's one thing that we should not take lightly when it comes to helping with changing the narrative. We know that systems exist, but with today's technology and access that we do have, even though we may not have all the access or have all the resources, we should always think about what we can do without the access, without the resources, and that's how we choose to show up. We cannot control what's not happening, but we can always control what we do. All right. So we honor that. We honor the history by the things that we do. So my next question to you comes from unlocking dreams through education. And again, this is in alignment with your life work, because to spend 45 years in education, which is so commendable. When we hear that it's only 2% of Black men in education, so you spending most of your life in education, it is commendable in itself. We know that education, helps to unlock dreams. So education was once denied to us
Yes.
um, because it unlocks possibility. So how can we ensure today? How can we ensure education today unlocks dreams rather than limits imagination?
Well, there's a statement in our executive summary for our school that says we are not just opening a school, we are building a movement that proves what is possible when Black boys are educated in an environment that honors who they are, challenges them to grow, and equips them to thrive.
Man, honors them for who they are and equips them to thrive, which is so important because again, once it's aligned with your possibility, with your innate ability, and reminded that this is what you come from. You come from greatness. You come from all those people who have paved the way, come up with ideas that we currently benefit from today. Because I tell you, to be honest with you, there are people that I came across in my adult age, like, and these were information that been out there. These inventors who have created so many great things,
Absolutely.
and I did not know. I think some of these people I become aware of them like in my 30s. And even though we go through school, and I think it should be, and I think that would also empower us. And and I know that because again and again, that's part of your motivation for creating that platform. But I do think we have to help them to realize who they are, and that they are not limited because of what have been socially engineered. And once we operate from that base, from that perspective, I think we will build future generations who will not only unlock their potential, but also will raise the bar even higher, which
Yes.
leads me to this, which is intergenerational responsibility. Again, you demonstrate that so well when it comes to intergenerational responsibility, because we all have a responsibility to make sure we pass on what we know to the next generation. So every generation has a responsibility to expand opportunity. What responsibility do successful Black men have to create access for those coming behind them?
You know, I read it said that success without a successor is failure.
Wow.
So if I'm a leader, then it is my responsibility to create other leaders. We are blessed to be a blessing. I heard a pastor say several years ago that everything on that God made on the face of the earth was made for a purpose outside of itself. And
Wow.
he gave the example like a chair is not made for itself; it's made for someone to sit in. And he
Hmm.
gave some other examples, and he said, so if that's the case, then why would God make us any different? So everything that He gave us was not for us, but to be shared with other people.
Man, you know what? That thing that you said about leaders, could you repeat it? Um, that you opened the response with.
That
Um,
I think it was John Maxwell that said it. Success without a successor is failure.
man,
So if I'm successful, but I don't use my success to bring others along so that they are successful, then I'm a failure.
wow,
If I'm a leader, it's my job not to create followers, but to create other leaders. And so it's vastly important, and we have that responsibility. In even if you're not an educator, I mean, if you're a parent, if you're a boss, if you're a bus driver, whatever you do, it's your job to bring others along to help them become their best.
man, that is so profound, and I think that is something that we all as Black men need to have on the door. Once we are leaving our home, we are leaving our office, as a reminder. Especially if we have overcome our own barriers to get to where we are. Um, we must know now that those coming behind me should not have the same challenges that I have, because I'm going to create a path. I'm going to help you see beyond your own barrier. But these are the things that I have done. Man, that is so powerful. Success without a successor is failure. Man, that is so powerful, and that's a great reminder. Man, a success, achieving success without having successors, that's failure. And sometimes, I'm like thinking and looking at some of the Black men who have achieved tremendous success, but sometimes you don't see like like especially to the level of achievement that they sometimes achieve. You be saying, man, you know what? They should have a lot more successors, a lot more individuals who you know stand on their shoulders. You
Right.
know, and I think that is very, very important. So resilience and refinement, and we know we are resilient people. Resilience is often celebrated, in our community, at what point does resilience need to evolve into strategy, ownership, and institution building? Again, you are a representation of this because this is where you are. But at what point does resilience need to evolve into strategy, ownership, and institution building?
One of the core sayings of the Marines is any situation that you run into, three things you need to do. You need to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So it's not just being resilient, but now that you've faced this issue, you've got to adapt and come up with a strategy to overcome that situation. And so if we do that, then success becomes a lot easier. Not easy, but easier, because we're not going to let whatever obstacles that are out there hold us back from accomplishing what we need to accomplish. And again, I try to share that with young people, because one of the main phrases that a lot of young people say that I work with even today is, this is not fair and that's not fair and I shouldn't have to do this, or if I had this. And my response has always been, okay, let's get used to it. Life is not fair. So the measure of your success, or how are you going to deal with the fact that life's not fair? Are you going to be successful in spite of, or are you going to let it destroy you? So again, resilience is important, but if there's no strategy, there's no drive, there's no initiative, beyond that resilience, then you're kind of stuck. And so we've got to continue to grow. We've got to continue to improvise. We've got to continue to adapt, and then we can overcome.
Man, that is so, so important and a great reminder. We got to utilize the resilience to do something that lasts beyond just what we do as individual. We know we can overcome, but we need to, build something with that strength, so others can benefit from our effort. So
Absolutely.
it's more, yes, it's more than just overcoming and overcome what we do experience. So the power of representation, which we know is important. Seeing someone who, and you mentioned it several times throughout the conversation, that they become what they see. Seeing someone who looks like you changes belief system. When did representation impact you personally, and how do you now serve as representation for others? I know you said your uncle inspired you to join the military. Was there any other people that were in spaces and positions that inspire you either throughout your military career or whilst you're in education or before you go into education?
Yeah, I had a football coach who refused to let me fail. He told me one time, he said, "You have too much ability and too much talent to be doing some of the things that you are doing now." So he said, "I'm going to make a proposition for you." And he had me in the locker room. There was nobody else in there but just he and I. And he took me in the corner of the locker room and he said, "We're going to meet here every day. And I'm going to ask you one simple question. What did you do today to make yourself better?" And he said, "If I am not satisfied with your response, I'm going to bounce your behind off these lockers." And then he began to bounce me around. And so every day I was back in that same spot. And it didn't take me long to realize that I'd better change my program because, you know, I didn't want to be in that corner every day. And so, again, having someone in your life who has high expectations, that sees more in you than you see in yourself, helps you become um, what you can possibly be.
And that is so important, and we must be that for those who are around us, especially
Absolutely.
when we see that they have the ability to do more than the norm. Let's not ignore it. And sometimes, we have to, put them in the corner, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, because sometimes, that's the only way
Yep.
they tap into it. Because if you don't put them in a position where they may feel uncomfortable or don't want people to know that, look, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. Then they will go in, as you said, it didn't take you too long to realize that, what, I need to change my
Yes.
perspective. I need to change how I go about doing what I'm doing. And also, it also shows that, the person, as you said, wanted you to become the best you possible. So
Yep.
protecting the next generation, which again, that which you just shared, is a part of protecting the next generation. Let them know that we see them and we see what they're capable of, even if they're not doing it. So young black boys are watching how we move. So, what behaviors, mindset, and standards must be modeled more intentionally?
Again, I think the very basic and most important is being a man of integrity. Again, you know, trust is built out of integrity.
Right.
If I watch you and I hear what you say and then you model what you say, now I'm going to trust you more. So I've got to be a man of integrity. If I say that I'm going to do A, B, and C, then you've got to see me doing A, B, and C. I
Correct.
can't tell you I'm going to hold you to a high standard, but I'm not going to hold myself to a high standard. So again, it's very important that we model those things. Again, if I get them to understand, if you control those three things that you can control, now you control a lot of situations that you thought you had no control over. Again, if I control what I think and what I say, then you can't make me mad. It's my choice whether or not I get mad. It
Correct.
doesn't change. It doesn't change what you did, but it changes how I react to what you do. So
Correct.
again, if we model those things and we continue to be consistent in those things, then trust is built, and those folks that I impact will now raise the standard for themselves based upon what they see and what I do.
Man, that is so true. We must model it and do it intentionally, and that's a great reminder. And and we have to take that really seriously when it comes to the next generation. Um,
For sure.
yeah, we have to take it seriously. So, in expanding the definition of excellence, which kind of relates to what you just shared, expanding, what we believe through our actions, because, what we do is results of what we believe, right? So we're not going to do something that we don't believe, or our actions. It's hard to follow through and show up if we don't believe in what we're doing, believe in ourselves. So,
Mhm.
expanding the definition of excellence, Black excellence is often narrowly defined. How do you broaden the definition of success so that more Black boys see themselves in it?
I tell them first and foremost, everything that you do it well. It doesn't matter what it is, be it studying, washing the dishes, taking out the trash, whatever you do, do it in an excellent manner. I tell I tell some of the mothers when they drop their young men off for our leadership institute, you know, you should never have to ask your son to take the trash out ever again, uh, because we're going to tell them and show them what it means to be a responsible young man. If you see the trash is, filling up, then mom shouldn't have to tell you to take the trash out. Do everything in an excellent manner. If you wash the car, do it in an excellent manner so it's sparkling clean. If you clean your room, or if you don't clean your room, clean it to the point of being. And again, my mom put it very clearly, succinctly to me. Everything that you do, do it well. And so again, it sets high standards. And if you set a high standard for yourself, then it's easy to achieve excellence.
Man, that is true, and it just goes back to I had some professors in college that really demonstrate that for me. But I always go back to when I was just about to start teaching, because teaching was not something on my list of things to do. I tell you, I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't even believe that I could even be someone's teacher. To be honest, even though later on in life, I start doing well academically. But I still didn't believe. But when I just moved to Georgia, and I told someone, man, I'm going to go into teaching, because for some reason I'm just going to go. Man, I say if you're there, and then it goes back to Dr. Kimbrough, and I went there to his office, and that's what he said, man. And everywhere you go, you want to show up as your best, because one, you can't tell your students to do something and you are not demonstrating it.
Right.
And that stays with me, with some other things that people that I've taken on from others. But that's how we kind of help broaden it, by us being the model of what we expect of the students. So we expanded excellence by demonstrating, through our own actions and the things that we commit to
Yeah,
each
I
day.
was like you. I didn't want to be a teacher. Teaching chose me. I didn't choose teaching.
That's right. That's
That was the
that's right.
last thing that I want to do when I went to college was to be a teacher.
Man, I'd say it was far from, just like you. My first professional career was, police officer. So
Hmm.
that was like far from thinking about, becoming a teacher. Although my first degree, to be honest, was to be a physical education teacher, coach, mostly coaching. So I was going to coach at a school, but that didn't happen. So although the foundation was there, it wasn't something that I was thinking about doing, and more so maybe because I didn't believe in myself at the time,
Right.
that I could even be as effective to serving those students. But later, I tell people all the time, in the classroom is where I am at my best self. That's where you may see a more true reflection of who I am
Hmm.
in the classroom. So and I love it. I tell you, I love to empower the students, because it's more empowerment for me than just educating them. If I can read, I can teach what's in the book. My job there is to help them to be an inspiration and to tap more into their own ability. So my question, and before we have this more, maybe two more questions before we end today. But this is legacy in action, and and again, being that we're on Black History Month, which celebrates. But what I want to ask is, what is the legacy you are actively building that will unlock dreams for generations you may never meet?
Yeah. Again, this the school that I am developing is my legacy. And it's not to make me look like I'm this fantastic person, because for me, again, legacy is not about me. Legacy is about what I'm leaving to those who come after me. So again, I want to develop a program and a school that will um, help produce outstanding young men.
Correct.
you know, Outstanding young men who will make a huge difference, a huge positive difference in the lives of so many people that they touch. Because again, for me, a legacy is not what you give to people or what you leave to people, it's what you leave in people. So again, if I can impart enough wisdom and enough drive and determination in you to help you become an outstanding young person that has vision and drive and initiative, then you're going to sow those same things in the people that you come in contact with.
Man, that is so true and so important. Not what we tell them, but what we allow to activate within them. That's as that that no, I was just saying that's what you said is the most important legacy.
Yep. Yeah, legacy is important.
Okay,
It's
okay,
it's what
okay.
it's what you leave in people.
What you leave in people. Okay, not just what you give to them,
Right.
but what you leave in them, because they then carry that on for
Yes.
generations and
Yes.
pass it on to the next generation.
Yes.
That's great. So before I get to my final question, I just want you to share where can the listeners, support you and the work that you're doing, because you're doing such an important work, especially getting that school um, in operation to empower generations to come. So how can they support you and in be in contact with you to support that vision?
You can go to our website, and it's themastersprep.org. Themastersprep.org. And it'll have all the information on there, how to contact us if you want to donate, if you want to give, if you want to support us. All of that is on the website.
Okay, man. Thank you. And I will do my best to put it in the description, so they can reach out to you to support you on that endeavor.
And
So
I'm also on LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn, okay, okay, and they can find you as Dr. Robert Murphy.
That is correct.
Okay, okay, great. So my final question is: if one young black boy is watching this conversation tonight, this evening, what do you want him to believe about himself?
I want him to believe that he can become whatever it is that he decides he wants to be. And that there is nothing on the face of this earth that can keep him from becoming that if he is determined to become that. So if you want to be a doctor, you want to be a pilot, you want to be a truck driver, it doesn't matter what you want, whatever goal that you have. If you strive to reach that goal, and I tell them and learn this, that a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Yeah,
So if you have a goal, now you've got to develop a plan to get to that goal. And don't let anything deter you from reaching that goal.
and that is such a powerful reminder. And they can be all they want to be, and it's important that they believe, and they should not limit themselves to whatever they may have heard, because innately they do have the ability to
Absolutely.
do it. So Dr. Murphy, I just want to say thanks again
Thank you.
for being here on the Black Male Impact. And I will say this is not our last conversation, because one thing that we didn't even talk about throughout this conversation is that you are also a part of volume two of the Voices of Impact. And I'm going to do a series on the Voices of Impact to get some of the guests back here. And not only to get some of the guests back here, but also to to bring the book back to the forefront, because the stories and the experiences and the accomplishments of black men needs to be in the hands of the younger generation. So we're going to be having another conversation along with the other guests, but it's going to be individually, but we're definitely going to be talking about the voices of impact, the stories, the experiences, and stuff like that.
It would be powerful if we could gather three or four of those contributors to the book at the same time. I
Okay.
bet you that could be a real powerful conversation.
Well, you know what? I'm going to make that happen, because I think, as you said, maybe that's going to be so. It's going to be maybe 4 to 5 people each time for the conversation. So we're going to make that happen, and sooner than later, we
Okay.
may make it a part of next month series or conversations talking to Black men and what you're doing. I'm going to make note of that. So, for those who are here, as we close tonight conversation, I want to remind you of something powerful. Legacy is not accidental; it is constructed. We have to be intentional in creating the legacy we want. The men we honor during this month were not, say, perfect, but they were intentional. We are not perfect being. We all, may come short, but I believe they do understand that education was liberation, that high expectations were protection, that identity must be affirmed before it can be realized. We have that responsibility. So the question now becomes, what will be said about our generation? And that is something that we need to think about. We know we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us, and they help us to see further. What will the next generation be seeing by standing on our shoulders? Will they see further ahead, or will they be looking behind them? Right, and that is something we must think about. Will we simply celebrate history, or will we expand it? It is something that we must think about as we go forward on our journey, and we also have to understand that every opportunity we walk into was once someone else's protest, prior, or perseverance, and every decision we make today has the potential to unlock or limit the dreams of those watching us. If one young Black boy is watching this conversation tonight, I want him to know, as Dr. Murphy have said, they're not behind, they're not limited, and they are not an accident. They are legacy in motion. So I want to thank everyone who have tuned in tonight and have shared. I think we have some more comments that came in. I know I didn't get a chance to see all the um, all right. I think her Lex Keys said a goal without a plan is just a wish. That's thank to Dr. Murphy for saying that, because that's something that you said. A goal without a goal without a plan is just a wish, which is so important. And I think there's some more here before we go. Um, but we're going to leave it at that. I just want to say thanks again for being here, and thanks to the listeners. And we're just looking forward to more conversations. So the Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired, and our goal is to bring Black men here who are doing the work, who are making an impact, and who have made the commitment to making a difference. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.